Alright, what's up guys, it's Speedster21 here. A few days ago, I did a video on how to replace or sharpen a chain on a chainsaw, and I used this saw. Now, this saw doesn't currently run, or at least it doesn't run well. So, today I'm going to be working on that. So, it's a chainsaw, so it's very dirty. So, a good thing you should do when working on the inside of a chainsaw is wear some sort of gloves. Because if you don't, your hands are gonna get really dirty, and it's hard to clean the grease and sawdust mixture off. It becomes sort of a glue, and it sticks to your hands. So it's always a good idea to wear some sort of gloves when working with chainsaws. So, first thing I'm going to do is remove this air filter. Then I can remove this. I don't know exactly what the purpose of this piece of plastic here is. It just kind of blocks the spark plug in there, and it's got a sun and a snowflake on it. I don't know what the heck it's for. Seems like maybe you could fold it down here somehow, like winter use, or flip it backwards or upside down or something. I really don't know, but it's there for some reason. I don't know what the reason is. So I'm going to lower the camera and be right back. Alright, back. So, where I left off, well, I'm sure you know where I left off. So this piece here, I need to also install. This is a boot that goes over the carburetor adjustment screws here and keeps them from wiggling loose or wiggling too tight while using. So, looks like the first thing I'll have to do is pull the carburetor. I'll be right back. Alright, so now I'm going to remove the carburetor and the intake here, if it wants to come off. Okay. Alright, we're back. I took off my gloves because they were interfering with the camera and my hands were getting really sweaty. Makes it hard to use a touch screen when you're wearing gloves. So. Now I have these two very small nuts here. So I need to put them in a place where I'll be able to find them easily. If you don't have a bowl nearby, you can use this cover here to hold the very small pieces. So, removing a carburetor like this is always a pain, but if you can remember how to do it right, you can do it a lot easier. Alright, so to remove the carburetor, there's a little piece right here. Don't know if you can see that, but right there at the tip of my finger, little metal bar goes from here to here. That's for the choke. Found the easiest way to deal with that, because you have to remove it to remove the carburetor, is to move it all the way up to the top, and then pry it out. If you start to pry it before, when you move it all the way up to the top, it should just pop out. Then you can start to remove the carburetor. Now, you've also got this throttle linkage, which is going to be in your way. So, you have to pull this forward, and then if you have a very small screwdriver, let me pull one out of my little set here. Very small screwdriver. You can kind of work it into there and pry it up and off of the little clip there. Then you can begin to pull the carburetor off. But also need to remember to remove this fuel line here. This part here, which can be very annoying. Grab a pair of pliers. I recommend needle nose pliers for this. You can just gently grab it and kind of twist it a little bit while you work it off of the nib on the carburetor that it connects to. You want to grab it gently so that you don't accidentally crush through it. You also want to relieve the pressure from the fuel tank first. Just showed you why. So I'll be right back. I gotta drain out all this fuel. All right. Now that I've emptied out all the fuel, should be ready to go. So, this fuel line can get in your way sometimes. So there's this black bar here. If you pull it up and slide it away, it will allow you to push the fuel line down a little bit further here. Like that. Then, you should just be able to hold it down there and slide the carburetor off. Now that you have the carburetor, let's see here. You take a screwdriver, whatever kind carburetor screws are, Phillips head or flathead, and you start to remove it. This screwdriver is a piece of garbage. And you start to remove them. All right, I need a different screwdriver. Oh wait, I have one. Yeah, I need a different screwdriver. All right, now that I have my screwdriver. So, let me set this cloth down. I have microfiber shop towels that I use here. So I set the cloth down, and I put the carburetor on top of it. Then I start to remove the screws. Now for these close-up details, I will move the camera in even closer. All right. So, now you can remove this piece here, this cover, and you have this piece of rubber here. Be careful when removing it to make sure that you don't tear it. Now, you always want to check this piece whenever you're inside, whenever you have the carburetor open. Make sure it still moves very easily. This one is starting to move a little bit difficult. So, I'm going to soak this in some kerosene. I use it as a cleaner. Alright, so I have a little dish of kerosene here, and I'm going to put this piece in here because it has a lot of dirt on it. Now I'm going to let it sit there until I'm done with the rest of this carburetor. There's another screw inside it, right here. This holds in the needle right here. This is the needle. This is the needle. Well, it's the arm that raises and lowers it when that diaphragm moves. Which is why your diaphragm needs to move easily, because the vacuum of the engine will pull it in and it will raise and lower the needle and allow it to work properly. So here's the needle, very small. So I'm going to soak that in the kerosene as well. Now there's a small jet here in the carburetor. So if I take a small screwdriver, it has a flathead in the jet. So if I can stick a small flathead screwdriver in there, I should be able to just unscrew it. This one's being stiff. So if I take my pliers and I grip the screwdriver with the pliers as well, now I have it slightly loose. Now that it's a little bit more loose, you can just unscrew it by hand. Now this jet here You want to make sure that it's completely clear and you can see all the way through it. Let me see if I can show you here. Gotta line it up just right. Well, anyway, you want to make sure that you can see all the way through it. Can't really get a good camera angle. So, you want to be able to see through it clearly. There's a small hole in the center of it. Now, just to be sure that it's clear, I'm going to soak it in this kerosene as well. Now that should be everything that you have to remove from this side. Now you switch to the other side. And you remove this screw. Longer screw than I remembered. And then you can remove this cover, which has a small gasket and this small diaphragm. So I'm going to set this in the kerosene to soak as well. And this gasket I'm going to very carefully remove and set it in the kerosene. This part I'm not. Now, if you look very closely down in here, there's a small screen. Now, you want to remove that screen, but do it very carefully. Try and get a very small screwdriver or something around the edge. And you can remove it. There's a passage that goes through it. So with the screen removed, you check and make sure that it's completely clear. I'm going to set it in the kerosene. And then I'm going to, now that I have everything in there, I'm going to swirl it around a little. Okay. Now, because I don't want to get it on my hands, I'm going to use pliers to carefully remove all of the pieces from the kerosene. Oops. There's that one. The jet. And the needle. Now I can set this to the side. Before I do that, if you look very closely in there, you can see a little bit of dirt that came out of the carburetor. So, now all you have to do is completely reassemble the entire thing. First I'm going to install the jet. Now, with the jet, there's a small spring that likes to jump away from you. It's about the size of a spring in a small mechanical pencil. Right there. So, this spring sits in a very small hole right here. Right there in the carburetor. Like, so, the spring needs to sit right there. Right near the center. Now, this piece here, your spring retainer and needle adjuster sits in there. It has a little pin that goes through. And that slips back down there into its spot, and then you tighten down the screw, which will clamp that pin in place and hold it in there. Now this should open and close. So, then I'm going to reinstall the jet, carburetor jet. Make sure that you set it in there right side up. And grab a screwdriver and screw it in. There. Simple as that. Then you take your diaphragm. This one moves a little bit easier now. I don't know if you can see that. When I press it up, it springs back. So, this small silver ring in there should face the top. Then you take the diaphragm cover and you place it here. Then you take 2 screws, hold that cover on, and you put them in. Do I have this on backwards? Yep, I had that on backwards. Now that it's on the right way, put screws in. Then you tighten these down, not super tight, but tight. Not to the point where you feel like you're going to strip them, but tight enough to hold that seal together very, very well. So, and flip it over to the other side. You take your little screen here, and you push it back in there with the tip of the screwdriver. Make sure that it is fairly level in there. There we go. Should look something like that. And then you take your diaphragm and you set it here. Well, this isn't really a diaphragm, it's more of a flap valve. Oh, that's upside down. And you set the spacer gasket on there. You put this cover on, make sure everything's lined up, and you screw it back down. So for any projects where there are little nuts or bolts or screws or things that are stuck, I recommend an impact driver. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can get this Chicago electric one at Harbor Freight. And it will work just fine. So now that you have the carburetor clean, you can check and make sure that this gasket looks like it's still flat. And there's this piece of metal behind it, which comes off. So you can examine it. So this saw used to belong to my dad until he gave it to me. That gasket looks like it's in good condition. So he gave it to me when he replaced it with another one of the same model. He wanted a new one because this one wasn't running quite right. So he gave it to me, and then I worked on it for a couple hours and got it to run really well. So this was my go-to saw for a while. Then it stopped running right, and I haven't really messed with it since then. So now I'm going to try and get it to run better because we have a lot of trees that need to come down. All of the ash trees in the area where I'm living are dying from some disease or bug or something. And they're not exactly safe once they've been dead for a couple of years. They start to become very weak, and the strong wind can knock them over once they've been dead for long enough. So we need to deal with them before they fall across our driveway. So once you have your fuel line reinstalled, you want to take this part here, your what's it called? Carb adjustment screw holder. Then you take this part here that kind of sits in here, and you stick this in. like that. And it'll sit there. And then this part just kind of sticks on there like this. Yeah, it is like that. This part has been off for quite a long time. It came off one time while I was working on it, and I didn't realize that it came off, so I reassembled it without it. And then I found it, and I just didn't bother to reinstall it for a while. So this thing isn't on quite right here, is it? No, it's not. This thing needs to somehow slip over top of all of these, and it just does not want to. So I might just leave this part off. It worked fine for a while without it. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave this part off. It's not completely necessary. So then take your throttle, ligament, link thing, throttle connector, rod, whatever the heck you want to call it. Grab it with some pliers or something so you can pop it up here. This thing does not want to do what it needs to do. Alright. Pull the carburetor back a lot. Pull this part up. And then you just kind of work this connector here until it sort of just sticks into that hole on the throttle piece there. It takes some work to get it in there, but yeah, this part is always one of the hardest parts. Lining up the throttle attachment here. It's always just a huge pain. There, it snapped in. So now I can push this back and completely forget that I had it open. This part here needs to stick in here, that end first, then this clips here. So this will also hold the throttle down a little bit, and then when you pull the trigger, it should pop back up. Alright, now I need to attach this. Oh, wait, I forgot a step here. Just this little metal spring here that you need to pull up and stick onto this rod before you attach it over there. So now that it functions well, I need to slot this piece into its home, if I can remember how. It's been forever since I've had to do this, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to remember exactly how this thing sticks in here. Oh, wow, not simple. Then you pop this up, this grounds to here, and it shuts off the engine off. Now that I've got all that reassembled, I take this part here, which is the intake, and I slide that on. Then I can reach over here. Well, actually, I forgot a step. Of course I did. Luckily, it was the step right before putting that on. Choke. This part slides in here. Well, we start by sticking this down in here. And then this part here, you can rotate up until it clicks. Then you can install this. The two nuts back on. There. Now that that's back on, now I can just kind of slip this part over here where it just kind of sits. Now, I think I'll check spark plug, so let me grab my spark plug. So to check the spark plug, I recommend using a little screwdriver or something to help pop this boot off because it sticks on these saws. So these steel chainsaws, they come with a little special wrench that goes with them. It's also got a screwdriver on the end. So that fits perfectly over the spark plug. And you can remove the spark plug with it. Now there's the plug. That looks brand new. I don't remember replacing it, but it sounds okay, but I'm going to put a little squirt of just regular oil down in the spark plug hole. Make sure I got it primed. Here we go. It's primed now. A little bit of oil down there. Turn it over slowly. It'll help get those piston rings lubricated. Now I'm going to put it over a little quicker. Alright. That should lubricate the entire cylinder. Oh yeah, just quick thing I forgot to mention. You need to check for spark with one of these. You can stick a screwdriver in there so it touches the cylinder head. Put the spark plug back in the boot. Kind of hook it around here. Make sure that there's metal from the spark plug touching the plug a few times. And if you see spark in the spark plug gap, which is right there, you should be good. So then you can reinstall the spark plug. Then you take the spark plug socket, tighten that down, put the cap back on. Where I set it, this weird piece of plastic that I don't know the purpose of. Put it back on there. Air filter. Make sure that nothing gets past it, like no dirt. Put the air filter on. Put the cover on. Tighten it up. And then get some fuel. So. Little tip, with these gas cans that you pull this thing down on, when you open it, just pull it a little bit to relieve the pressure. And then it's got this little notch on it. That notch is so that you can stick it into the gas tank and then just press, and it will open it and pour out gas into the tank. Didn't spill a drop. Those cans I'm okay with, but the new ones where you gotta press a button or pull a lever or pull 47 triggers or something, those are annoying. Oh, almost forgot. Check bar oil. Make sure that you have some before you go starting it. Yep, there's some in there. Alright, let's see if it starts. Alright, let's see here. So, if I push this lever here all the way down by the throttle, that's full choke. Now it's going to take a few pulls like this to suck some gas up. Alright, make sure the chain is locked when starting. There we go, we started. It smoked a little because there was some oil in the cylinder still. Oh, died. Give it another try. And there we go. Now it runs. See you in the next video.